What if God was a machine? It is a terrifying thought, but in 1951, one film argued that a machine might just be the only thing capable of saving us. This is the story of the robot who played God. In most science fiction, machines arrive as harbingers of destruction, but in Robert Wise's 1951 classic, The Day the Earth Stood Still, this one represented something far more unsettling: dominion over life itself. Meet Gort, the silent interstellar bodyguard for an alien ambassador. He doesn't have a face or voice, but he does have the ability to resurrect the dead and the absolute power to decide whether our species deserves to survive. Cinema had imagined robots before, from the machine and mensch of Metropolis to the walking bombs of Flash Gordon. But by 1951, the real world had begun to feel more disturbing than anything Hollywood could invent.
Duck and cover.
Be sure and remember what Bert the Turtle just did, friends, because every one of us must remember to do the same thing. That's what this film is all about. Duck and cover.
Children were taught how to survive a nuclear blast. Neighbours were told to look out for the enemy within.
In recognizing a communist, physical appearance counts for nothing. If he openly declares himself to be a communist, we take his word for it.
Humanity had unlocked the atom. We tried to play God, but in doing so only seemed to accelerate our own extinction. Robert Wise, director, understood the prevailing mood, and so when the future appeared on screen, it came as a warning. The message was clear: humans were no longer in control. The Day the Earth Stood Still is an adaptation of the Harry Bates novella Farewell to the Master, which first appeared in Astounding Science Fiction in October 1940. In the original tale, the robot called Gnoot, rather than Gort, plays a crucially different role to the one in the movie, a role only revealed in a chilling final twist. But to get that all-important ending, Hollywood first had to build a robot god, and in 1951 that meant finding an incredibly tall man to play him, and they found him working on the door at Grauman's Chinese Theatre. Standing at well over 7 feet tall, Lock Martin was affectionately known as the Gentle Giant. But that height came at a cost. Martin suffered from gigantism. Inside the suit of that indestructible robot stood a man who was physically frail. In fact, during the famous scene where Gort carries Patricia Neal's character, Martin was so weak he couldn't actually lift her. In the wide shots, he's carrying a lightweight dummy, and in the close-ups, she's suspended on wires. But it wasn't just his strength, that was an illusion. To maintain the look of the seamless robot's armour, the costume department had to hide the zips, and the way they did that was to build 2 separate suits. If the camera was shooting from the front, then Martin wore the suit that zipped up the back, and if the camera moved behind him, he just wore the other suit, the one that zipped up from the front. Whichever suit he wore, it was made of the same uncomfortable material, 2 layers of thick foam rubber painted silver. Under the studio lights, it was hot, claustrophobic, and incredibly heavy, putting his already frail body under further strain. But if the physics of the robot were tricky enough, the metaphysics were becoming a real headache. It soon became apparent that the studio had stumbled into a theological war with the censors. Towards the end of the movie, Klaatu, having been shot dead by the military, is brought back to life by Gort using mysterious alien technology. But Joseph Breen, chief administrator at the Motion Picture Association of America, was unhappy with the portrayal of a resurrection being performed by a robot, thinking it strayed too much into religious symbolism. Breen was the man responsible for enforcing the strict moral guidelines of the Hays Code. And without his seal of approval, the film couldn't get released. So director Robert Wise was forced to add a new line of dialogue, a disclaimer, to clarify that Gort's power was merely a temporary trick, not a divine right.
He has the power of life and death?
No. That power is reserved to the Almighty Spirit. This technique, in some cases, can restore life for a limited period.
But while the studio were busy appeasing the church, they were sleepwalking into a political firestorm. Professor Barnhart, played by Sam Jaffe, is the voice of reason in the movie, the Einstein figure who gathers the world's scientists to listen to the aliens' warning. It was perfect casting, as Jaffe was a former mathematics teacher and as such lent an air of authenticity to a character obsessed with equations. But shortly after filming, Jaffe was targeted by the House Un-American Activities Committee, accused of being a communist sympathiser. While the studio fought to keep him in the picture, the industry soon turned its back on him once he was blacklisted, and this became one of his final roles for years to come, even returning to the classroom to teach mathematics. The man who played the voice of reason was silenced by the very paranoia the film was warning against. And that paranoia is central to the plot. The film shows that humans are dangerous. We shoot first and ask questions later. Which brings us to the problem of Gort. If you build an all-powerful robot to police the galaxy, what happens if it then decides that we are the problem? You need a kill switch.
You must say these words. Klaatu Barada Nikto. Please repeat that.
Klaatu Barada Nikto.
Klaatu Barada Nikto.
Klaatu Barada Nikto.
Barada Nikto.
I am Klaatu, and this is the little woman, Barada. Little Nikto left one of his toys behind.
Klaatu Barada Nikto.
Klaatu Barada Nikto.
Klaatu Barada Nikto. The Robot Hall of Fame calls this one of the most famous commands in science fiction. But leaving the pop culture aside for a moment, we are looking at something terrifyingly modern here. In the age of artificial intelligence, we call this the alignment problem. If you create a superintelligence, then how can you ensure that it is aligned to human interests? And if it isn't, then how do you turn it off? In 1951, 3 words were enough to stop the apocalypse. Today, we're not so sure. And this leads to the film's revolutionary conclusion. Klaatu, the alien emissary, leaves Earth with an ultimatum.
It is no concern of ours how you run your own planet. But if you threaten to extend your violence, this Earth of yours will be reduced to a burned-out cinder.
He reveals that the robots are not servants, but rather a self-imposed police force programmed to destroy any planet that threatens the peace. And now that Earth has developed nuclear weapons, we've made the watch list. AI scientist Stuart Russell uses Greek mythology to highlight the problem of human preference change and asks how technology might cope with this in the future. I think that this film tries to answer that question.
In matters of aggression, we have given them absolute power over us. This power cannot be revoked. At the first sign of violence, they act automatically against the aggressor.
Just as Ulysses tied himself to the mast of his ship to avoid the call of the sirens, this movie suggests that humanity must bind itself to a higher machine power because we cannot trust ourselves. In other words, its message is that we need an almighty powerful robot capable of annihilating us to make sure that we keep doing the right thing. It is a grim, cynical ending. But if you think that's dark, then you haven't read the book. Remember I told you that the novella had a twist? Well, in the end of the original story, only 2 characters remain. A reporter called Cliff and Gnoot, the robot, tending to the dead body of the alien visitor Klaatu. Cliff is remorseful on behalf of planet Earth for the death of Klaatu and implores Gnoot to get a message of apology to his master. And in the final line of the story, the machine responds. "You misunderstand," the robot says. "I am the master." In the movie, the robot is a tool we use to save us from ourselves. But in the book, the robot represents the intelligent civilization. The humanoid organic alien, he's just a pet. In 1951, we asked what would happen if a robot played God. 75 years later, we might just be about to find out. Thanks for watching.